O'Reilly. Are your wiper blades chattering, skipping, or squeaking? Don't let streaks or smearing on your windshield compromise your visibility. When it's time to replace your wiper blades, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and see our selection. Our professional parts people will even install your new wiper blades while you wait. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night and we'll see you on stage.
The Hunting Collective is presented by Element.
I guess I grew up on an older road.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Hunting Collective. I am Ben O'Brien, and I am joined by Philip T. Engineer. Say hello, Philip.
Hello, Ben.
How you doing, buddy? Not like that. Don't say hello like that.
Oh, I was just trying to sound like you. I'm doing good. Yeah.
Good. Now, we have to cover off on Halloween quickly.
Sure.
I dressed up like a stormtrooper. My wife dressed up like a stormtrooper. My son was Kylo Ren. We scored the motherload of candy above all motherloads of candy. So I'm feeling pretty good. Pretty first world stuff over here. We got piles of Reese cups. And we were able to identify the houses in my neighborhood that gave out the full-size candy bars. And I went on my Onyx maps and I put little waypoints on their homes. So next year I know what my strategy is. How did it go over there for you?
Oh, it went pretty well. We only went to a few houses for trick-or-treating, but then we handed out candy, and my oldest son said that he enjoyed that just as much as getting the candy. So
wow.
I don't know. He's either a really weird kid or he's got a good heart.
I think he's got a good heart. He's got empathy.
Thanks.
I think, having not met the young lad, I feel that shows a lot of character from your little guy there.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think he's just a freak.
he's just weird for being nice in this day and age. But anyway, yeah, I'm a little bit. I just don't know now, as a father and a person who tries to stay alive, what I'm supposed to do with all this candy, because I'm eating so much of it. My son has kind of a pitch count. He gets one a day. He gets one piece a day, right? This is he's working on kind of a very curated schedule. But me, when everybody goes to bed, I'm sitting around the house with a bucket of candy.
Dangerous.
And so I don't know. Do you have any advice? Any like Dr. Phil, medicine woman advice for people in this situation?
I mean, you just got to have self-control. I'm going to share a not-so-sharp moment with you, Ben. Are you ready?
Please.
This might be early, and it's not
I'm
mine.
excited.
It's my son's.
Please.
He had a Halloween party at his school the other day, and he ate so much candy that he got home, walked through the front door, and immediately vomited everywhere.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's the end of the story. Play the jingle, Phil. You just gotta pace yourself. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I have the mind of a child, and so I found myself if you'd like for me to paint the picture for you of last night when I was laying in my underwear on the couch, and around me was like a smattering of wrappers, and there might have been like chocolate in my beard, and it just wasn't good.
There's something, I mean, I feel worse surrounded by candy wrappers than I do like empty beer cans. I feel more shame with sugar than I do with alcohol.
That's right. I consider this a cry for help because a lot of people are seeing that's telling me that maybe I talk about booze a lot on the show. I have my vices, and right now it's those white chocolate ghost shaped Reese cups, and they're little and they're small.
The white chocolate Reese's.
Yeah, well, there's none left over here, so don't come over.
Oh, okay.
But we won't belabor this much more. But I ate about a half dozen of them babies last night. It was glorious, but like you said, I don't get much out of it. When you're drinking, at least you get something out of it in terms of inebriation. But when you're eating sugar, I mean, it's the ultimate quick high. You're like, this is delicious. Now it's gone. Look, there's 12 more.
Uh-huh.
And so there's nothing we can do. I'm powerless against it. So we got to move on.
I'm sending my thoughts and prayers, but
thanks. Thoughts and prayers.
Yep.
We got to move on. Today's episode is a good one. Of course, you already listened this far. You already invested 3-4 minutes into this thing, but it's a good one. I promise. Jordan Jonas is the man who won season 6 of the reality show Alone. Now, Phil, have you seen this show before?
I have seen the tile in my Netflix interface. I have not clicked on it though.
Well, at least you're aware of its existence, right?
Yeah.
He's a much more interesting character than just the show he was on. But if you guys haven't watched the series Alone, specifically season 6, we'll take a quick break, let you binge watch all about 8 hours of that content, and we're back. So now you know what Alone is all about. But Jordan Jonas won about $500,000 by staying longer than I think 11 other contestants out in the Arctic. He shot a moose with a trad bow. He built a shelter. He killed a Wolverine with a hatchet in defense of his moose meat. He did some things that make me feel real jealous in terms of going outside and surviving. He's also done a ton of things beyond just the television show that you need to hear about, including living with a group of tribal reindeer herders in Siberia called the Evenki people. So we covered that a lot on that interview. You're going to stick around for that. But I will tell you, before we get to that, Phil, as always, the email inbox is hopping. So thanks again for everybody for writing into thc@themeateater.com. A lot of you had opinions about last week's show on wound loss, particularly stories relating to some of the things that I had to say and that Sam Lundgren had to say and that Giannis Patelis had to say about wounding animals with archery or rifle, etc. There's dozens of emails here from people relating stories that they hadn't shared publicly before, or maybe felt a little bit of shame around, or had only shared in the circles with folks that had been there or seen it. So I'm not saying that we need to live out in the open with wounding game, but it's certainly there's people around you that can relate if it happens to you. I guarantee it. And so if you were in a situation where you didn't really think that before, hopefully you get that now. One of the craziest that came from Casey Bryson out of Utah, and he wrote in and he sent some pictures along with it. Phil, can you look on my Instagram page? Have you seen the last thing I posted?
I
Look
saw
that
the
up.
first picture. I did not scroll through them yet, though.
They're not that bad in terms of like Glenn Bond photos. They're
sure,
totally fine. In the scale of Glenn Bond, they're like
Glenn Bond. It's like, so if Glenn Bond is a 10, this is like an 8 or a 9, right?
No, if Glenn Bond's a 10, this is like a 3 something. Okay. So if you go there, the first photo shows the knock and the back part of an arrow sticking through the hind quarter of a mule deer, spiked mule deer. And then the second photo shows that same mule deer's testicles with a scab of some kind on the left side of its testicles. And then the last photo is just of the spiked deer still in velvet. And Casey writes, I shot this spike buck today with my rifle. We saw that it was still in velvet. When we arrived to the body, we noticed it had only one nut and a huge scab on its nutsack. We thought it got hung up on a fence, something like that. But after we got it home and hung it up in the garage, I noticed an abnormal bump in the hindquarter. As I started to skin it and cut away the pus sacs that were there, I realized it was an arrow. I think someone shot the buck through the nutsack, and the back half of the arrow stayed embedded in its back leg. Craziest thing I've ever seen. I now believe that the scab is where one testicle had been sliced off and fallen out of the scrotum. And then he goes on to say, these animals are tough SOBs. When we were watching the deer, it didn't have a limp or anything that would suggest it was injured at all. Casey, comments, Phil.
Yikes. Yep.
One commenter on Instagram said, and I thought this was pretty funny. He said, T_Hunter_L said, bro, now that you and Phil have condemned poop stories for not so sharp moments, I feel like you're set up for quite a few nutsack stories after sharing this.
I mean, honestly, I'll take them. I'll take the ball good? Stories over the shit stories.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel you. This one is way more painful, though. Maybe this is a very sharp moment. But again, I mean, as much as you can kind of laugh at this, this happens. Obviously, there's very little option here that somebody didn't miss horribly or took a bad shot on this deer. Obviously, you're not aiming anywhere near the nutsack of a deer when you're trying to kill it. So it just goes to show you this stuff's out there. A couple, I say about half a dozen or 8 of you have sent in similar stories independently of each other before I posted that one, talking about wounded game. We had another guy, Sean Murray, out of British Columbia, who says that his son shot a moose earlier this fall, and he found that somebody had already taken a shot at near the same point, but it had a hole clean through the top part of its neck, and it looked like it was healing up pretty good. Sent some pictures in. So there's a lot of that going on. So again, if you're out there and this is happening, there's no action you can take if it happens to you. If you have an animal down there's clearly evidence it was wounded, there's not a whole lot you can do about it other than learn from it and acknowledge it and really just move on with your hunting and just be aware that it happens and just be taking a look at the frequency of which it happens around you and, your contribution to making it better. That's all you can really do, but appreciate all the emails and that conversation. Also, Phil, we should say that we have someone here that needs an opinion. And I think that opinion was going to require the return of a very important segment. Do you know what that segment is?
I have a guess.
No one has asked for this.
Especially me. 0
people have asked for this, but we're bringing it back anyway. It is the return of Dr. Phil, Medicine Woman. Dylan Lambert writes in. He didn't even write this to Phil, really. He just wrote it in general, but I think we need you on this one, Phil. He says, THC. I've been listening to the podcast for about a year now. I really listen to your input on situations within the hunting world. I've been hunting for a few years, but this year and last year are the first I've gotten pretty heavy into it. I live in Virginia and mainly target white-tailed deer. I've so far only filled a doe tag. I've dreamed of killing a buck and just having that rush as a buck walks up to me in the woods, but I've yet to have it happen. As I talk to multiple hunters, I often hear that some people get very aggravated when a hunter kills a quote-unquote small buck. They all want you to kill quote-unquote monster bucks and leave the small ones for years to come. I understand where they're coming from, but in the same picture, I need to start somewhere. Should I have any guilt when I possibly kill a smaller buck? I'm not just hunting for the size of the rack. I also want the feeling of accomplishment as I put meat in the freezer that I know I killed. What is your opinion on hunters being angry or aggravated with other hunters and beginner hunters for killing small bucks and not letting them walk? Phil, please. Input.
Well, as a professional, I would just like to say I don't think you should feel guilty. At least, I mean, especially at first, if you haven't been hunting for very long, as long as you're, adhering to all the laws and regulations placed down by the people that, listen to the science and everything and tell you what you can and can't kill.
Yep. I'm thinking.
I don't think you need to feel guilty. Am I wrong about this, Ben?
No, you're not wrong about this at all. I feel like this is something that a lot of new hunters run into, not only in their personal circles, but in social media, different places like that. Veteran hunters are probably want to actually promote the fact that they kill a spike or a basket rack deer or something like that. We certainly promote that on our show, The Back 40 with Mark Kenyon, that we should be hunting mature bucks. But at the same time, Mark's dad, David Kenyon, came over to the Back 40 this year, and he shot the first respectable small buck that he got a crack at. And that his scenario is different than Mark's scenario. Mark hunts all the time. It's his profession. He has crafted this quality deer management ethic along with the Quality Deer Management Association, and he's managing properties for overall population dynamics, but also for his want to kill mature deer. And so his perspective is totally different from his own father's perspective on the subject, and we celebrate both those things at the same time. So you know what I'm going to say next, Phil? Two things can be true at the same time. In this case, veteran hunters should be, at some level looking for mature deer. It's good for the population dynamic, but also they should be promoting new hunters to come in and set their own expectations and let them kind of get to the larger, trophy hunting aspect in their own time, in their own way. Right, Phil?
That was very well said, Ben. I haven't agreed with anything more.
Oh, really?
That's true.
That's good. I kind of get sad when you agree. I kind of get sad when you agree anymore. I want you to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So thanks.
I don't have it in me today.
Okay. Well, it gets boring.
You sounded very smart.
Thanks. Appreciate it. So Dylan, go forward, kill deer, and enjoy your kind of approach to it. Certainly, as long as you're, as Philip said there, you're in the bounds of the game agencies and the laws they lay down on you. Beyond that, do it, but also be in the mind that those veteran hunters are there for that. They have that opinion for a reason, because they've been through what you're about to go through, and the end game is continually challenge yourself and to start looking at the wider picture. So that is that. And now, Phil, not so sharp moment. Play the jingle.
Work sharp, not so sharp moments, sharp so you don't have to be. Season 2! Yeah!
Okay, Phil, I think we have a non-poop story here.
Well, good, because I wouldn't allow anything else.
People are I feel like they want to fight back against you here. I've got a few DMs on Instagram for people that are they want freedom. They don't want censorship.
Come at me, bro.
In an election year, they want no censorship. They want to be free to express themselves in the way that they wish, and they don't want to be censored by the likes of you.
Okay, well, it's them or me, Ben.
Oh man, I choose you, I guess.
Great, thank you.
But much like in an election, you put me between the lesser of two evils. But I'll choose you.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. Fred Larson says, my oldest daughter, 14, and I recently went on her first quote-unquote real hunt. I use the quotation marks as she had been on one prior hunt, but as an apprentice hunter. And this year, she not only completed her hunter's safety course in the spring, she also drew a youth hunt whitetail tag on some public land here in Tennessee. As the day drew closer, she became more excited as she practiced with her rifle, to the point she grouped and zeroed at 150 yards with 2-inch groups and passed Steve Rinella's milk jug test at almost 200 yards unsupported. She was ready for her first hunt, but not looking forward to the early morning. I had set the 2-person stand on a field edge just over a mile off the road up a trail where we had to hike in the pre-dawn. And we did as quietly as an excited new hunter could. We settled in and waited for legal light and hopefully our first sight of a deer. Her tag was for either sex, and she was hopeful to get just anything. As I have had not much success over the last few years myself, I'm also new. Well, sunrise came as we sat eagerly awaiting our first opportunity of tentatively listening to the woods come to life. She suddenly hears clang, bang, bong, tink, thud. I dropped my thermos of coffee, and it must have hit every single metal step on the way down before thumping off a tree. We decided to wait about an hour and see if I didn't manage to scare everything away, but alas, nothing showed. I am now feeling like the biggest jackass on the planet. We agreed to go warm up at the truck and take a nap at the house, thankfully only a 45-minute drive away, and come back for an evening sit, which worked better than I could have hoped for. With about 2 hours till sunset, a couple of spike bucks stepped out across the field at 100 yards, and she took her first deer and the first buck of her family. Well, that's pretty cool. So now you know my not-so-sharp moment, but why is this example for Phil T. Engineer? My daughter collects shiny... I don't even know how to say this, but you might know, Phil. My daughter collects shinies in Pokemon, capturing...
Yes, Ben, a shiny version is just a rarer version of a Pokemon.
Oh, okay. She's capturing herself, no trading. Sorry, Ben. Maybe Phil will explain it, because I don't even know what's going on here.
She's talking about Pokemon Go, probably. Yeah.
Plays Animal Crossing on her Switch.
Animal Crossing, singular. Animal Crossing. New Horizons.
Know what's a Switch.
It's the most current Nintendo game console, Ben.
Oh, okay. And several other games beside being an all-A student in advanced classes as a freshman at high school. If she can manage all that in addition to normal chores around high school craziness in this new pandemic madness, surely Phil can finish his hunter safety. P.S. My 10-year-old daughter completed hers as well, with both of them doing the online course and then having to attend in-person field day in Tennessee to pass. Thanks, Fred Larson. Play the jingle, Phil.
Work sharp, not so sharp moments, sharp so you don't have to be. Season 2! Yeah!
I am starting to sound like some kind of weird 80s radio guy.
Yeah, kind of. Well, Fred, I've got something to say to you and to Ben and the audience, and that is that I have finished my hunter safety.
Oh, my God! Oh, my God! Oh! Yes! We've done it! Here on Election Day, I've never been more proud to be an American. Where at least I know I'm free and I won't forget the men who died and gave
and passed their hunter's safety
to pass his hunter's safety course. Please, speech.
I mean, I don't have much to say. I just, it was hard work, but I had to get it done for you and for actually mainly for Yanni.
I know. I always felt that when Yanni would give you shit, you'd be like, you get up and you'd move. When I would, it was like quicksand. You would sink further into the non-action.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in actuality, it wasn't difficult. It was time consuming though. Because they've got, when you do it online, you got this little timer. They throw up a card and they're like, it takes you. What?
Well, I don't know, man. I was excited. I was making noises.
Oh, Jesus. They throw up a little card and it takes you 7 seconds to read it. And then it's like, you have to wait a minute and a half before you can hit the next button. And, it's just, I understand why they want you to retain the information and really get it in there. But it was a pain in the ass. But I learned a lot. I'm glad I did it. And, passed my test with flying colors.
At this point, next episode, we're going to have Phil give what he learned. We're going to have what you learned segment. And we'll have you give the listeners a little bit of what you learned.
Great. I've forgotten half of it already, so
I know.
Hurry up.
Why I'm hurrying up. Man, this is great. Phil just dropped that in. By the by, Fred Larson, you're going to get yourself one of those wonderful field sharpeners from Worksharp. And if you, Fred, go over to their YouTube page, they got all kinds of really cool sharpening tips, hot tips weekly going up over there, the YouTube page. Thank you again to our friends at Worksharp for doing what they do. Man, this is really it, man. For all of you people that thought, well, I just voted. I don't know if I have anything to look forward to. You now have Phil's first hunt to look forward to. And Phil, do you feel like we're going to get it done this year? I'm feeling pretty good about it.
I mean, I hope so. I don't know what the. I mean, I'm not educated enough to know about season lengths.
So
and
good.
stuff like that. But I
Don't
hope we
worry.
can squeeze it in there.
And the thing about hunting, there's always something going on. And so I now will spend the rest of my week planning some glorious event for us
Great.
to take you out there. And then thinking about what's in it for me. That's what I'll be thinking about at that time.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we got to get to our buddy Jordan Jonas. Before we do that, Phil, you voted?
I voted.
I am voting tomorrow. Well, I guess when you're hearing this, I will probably be voting on the day of the election, Tuesday, November 3rd. So I'll be out there voting. I will. We're not gonna spend a whole lot of time talking about the election or what it means and all this stuff. I think most of the cliches have already been uttered. Most people have given their opinions one way or the other. I will just say, if any of you followed me on Instagram, you saw that I posted what I thought was a joke about a Trump sign on a dilapidated building in eastern Montana. I was out hunting deer and saw this building, thought this is funny, made a post. Well, it turned into hundreds of comments, some positive, mostly negative, lots of name calling, lots of rushes to judgment, lots of I've lost complete faith in you. I will never listen to you again. Things of that nature from a lot of people in the comments section on Instagram. My friend Joe Rogan always says, don't read the comments. But in this case, I think it's important to kind of get an idea of where we're at as a country and maybe as listenership to this podcast, where this stuff's hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about who you voted for. It's hard to talk about why you did so. And it just has become something where we all self-censor because we don't want people to hate us. We do want to, in the case of somebody like me who has an audience on the podcast, I don't want to lose anybody from listening to this show. And I don't want to lose anybody from being a follower of mine on Instagram. All that's important to me and the business of doing this here program. So I didn't enjoy that, but certainly my response to that was, listen, I'm happy to share who I voted for. I'm happy to share why. I've never been in the camp to self-censor because I'm afraid of criticism. I'm not afraid of somebody's snap judgment. I'm not afraid of someone calling me a liberal or a conservative. It certainly gets nastier than that, it seems, in 2020. And so I say all that to say I happily shared in that post who I voted for on a couple of issues. I also want to say that this podcast and my social media, if you're one of those folks that hear that I voted for one person or in particular or another and immediately want to jump ship or say that I'm hateful or racist or whatever, the folks that want to say that, it's probably not a real good place for you to be anyway, because we're going to continue to push these dogmas. We're going to take a look at the orthodoxies on both sides and try to push them. We're going to talk to people we disagree with. We are not going to be an echo chamber. And if you're looking to only come to a place where you're going to feel accepted and affirmed and comfortable, this probably isn't going to be that. There's certainly many places that will just affirm these ideas that you have and not challenge them. So in that way, I hope this can be a place where people can come to be challenged, come to think for themselves, and form ideas based on information that you gather, not ideologies that you share with someone. And so no matter what happens in this election, I hope that this can stand for this show and for my social media and whatever else that I roll. This is how it's going to be. Not only with vegans, but with gun control activists or people that disagree with climate change or anyone that disagrees with any of the things that I kind of hold to be true or important to me at the very least. We're going to go and talk to those folks and see what we can learn. I'll certainly be sharing some thoughts on Instagram, and when I vote, I've got some things I want to say. Continue to say them. But like I said, bottom line, it is important to test your own ideas and to get yourself in a position where you're comfortable if someone disagrees with you. And if you're not comfortable, you should probably take a look at yourself and see what you can do a little bit better. So that's it. We're going to get to a totally different topic. Now we're going to talk to our friend Jordan Jonas, season 6 winner of Alone, all kinds of stuff. He rode a reindeer one time. One time he killed a Wolverine with a hatchet. He's just a generally good dude. So you're going to enjoy Jordan Jonas.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there because they're great and they're super friendly and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth.
Jordan, what's up, man?
How's it going?
Oh, it's not that bad. Sorry about cutting this antelope up.
I see you're at work over there. That's good.
yeah. These days we're so busy these days that you got to work and work at the same time. So
Tis
I figure
the season.
Yeah, rather than just podcast, I figure you might as well make a neck roast, have an antelope while we're at it. Yeah, got to multitask.
Nice. So you're making good progress.
Yeah, man. I got a couple hindquarters taken apart and the neck deboned.
Sweet,
and,
you got me jealous at least. That's good.
Oh man, you feeling it? You're feeling it. So you're in Virginia, you said Lynchburg.
I am. Yeah. Lynchburg, Virginia. Yeah.
I was just listening to the podcast you did with Rogan, so I feel like I got a lot of the background, man.
Yeah.
I think we got to tell people how you got to Virginia by way of traveling in train cars.
Yeah, we rode. My brother did it a lot when he was my older brother, and he would spent years just riding freight trains all across the country, up and down the coasts and back and forth. And he invited me to go with him when I was 18 or so, and hopped on a freight train, and we went across the country, and we would end up stopping in Virginia a lot to do temporary work for some guy, and long story short, that's what kind of stuck us here in the long run. But yeah, had some adventures doing that.
Of all the things you've done, man, that was like the most interesting part to me, because your brother was doing it for 7 years. And you guys would literally just get on an open train car and ride until you didn't feel like riding anymore.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, some of the coolest rides are up there through where you're at, up in Montana and North Idaho and stuff. Just beautiful, because the trains, follow the rivers, and the animals aren't really that afraid of them anymore. So you see a lot of the country, a lot of nature. It's actually a pretty cool way to travel if you're not in a hurry.
What drove you to do that? Because you were in Idaho, right? You grew up in Idaho?
Yeah, I was in Idaho, and I was just working. I'd been working a concrete job. Well, no, then I was at the salad dressing factory. And my brother just invited me to come along, and why not? What am I doing? So I just joined him and went across the country, up and down the East Coast, and then we came back, and at some point I split off from him and came back to Idaho on my own. So that was kind of cool. First experience, a week or so alone. That was kind of neat. And then, but yeah, I don't know. I guess just a sense of adventure or something, trying to switch it up.
Well, yeah,
I did it. Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of foreshadowing in that because you're now well known for being on a show called Alone. But
right.
It seems like it seems like that. We'll get to the show because I want to talk about that, of course. But it seems like that's just a little bit a part of who you are, man. Like, because there's not a lot of people that would follow that wanderlust and literally just jump on a train and see where it took you.
Yeah, you didn't run into a lot of other passengers.
There wasn't like a first class and
yeah. They weren't very crowded, I guess. Maybe in the 20s. No, but it's definitely, especially when you're young like that, you can kind of get stuck just doing a job, and it's like, well, why am I doing this? I'm not, I didn't have a family to support or anything. I might as well fill up some experiences. And, one thing leads to another, and ended up in Virginia and ended up, heading to Russia and all that stuff. It's all kind of, I guess it's just kind of off the coattails of riding the trains, really.
Yeah, it seems like your story kind of started there. And then what's interesting to me is that you kept on just like taking the opportunities that I think a lot of people wouldn't take, right? Because you took this opportunity, you ended up in Virginia.
I think that was a conscious choice I made at some point when I was young. I was like, I am just going to say yes to all the experiences at this point in my life because I knew I could, So I think I did. And it took me on a bit of a journey for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the coolest stories come from your time in Russia with the Evenki people and all this stuff. And this is it's a precursor to what people will know you from. But how did you get over there in the first place?
It was actually kind of a convoluted story that I have one brother who's adopted, and he found his biological family. And he had a biological brother who was going to go to Russia. And he kind of invited me to come over and help build this orphanage with this missionary guy. And I said, sure, but I actually was going to win all in kind of. I just got the longest you could get a visa for at the time was for a year. So I just got a year-long visa and headed over to Russia, not really knowing what to expect at all. And tried to learn a few, some Russian. And then when I got there, I kind of got into the deep end because I actually went to live with a Russian family as opposed to that missionary guy, and spent the better part of the year with them trying to learn the language and just living in a Russian village with some villagers cutting hay with scythes. And, they don't have hay bales. They stack them in those piles still like they used to back in the day,
Yeah, I mean, cool. I feel like there's ever, in situations with people that just follow where life takes them. Like, do you ever look around when you're in a Russian village and go like, whoa, I'm in a Russian.
Oh, yeah.
How did I get here?
What am I doing here? Yeah.
How did I get here?
Definitely. And, of all the villages, why this one random village out in the middle of central Siberia? Like, how did this happen? But,
describe the village and kind of the people you were with, because I think the folks you were with had an interesting past.
So the family I lived with, there were two families in the village that they kind of bounced between. They both liked having me there because, free labor and stuff. And they were just fun guys. But they were both the men of the household had been in prison together, so they had got real close in prison. And, the one guy was just covered in those Russian prison tattoos, and then the other guy wasn't. But they had both spent a good 7 or 8 years in prison and had some crazy stories and stuff from there. But then they'd also, been in prison with a Evenki native guy from the far north, and that was that connection. But yeah, just in that Russian village, man, it was actually pretty cool. Pretty simple, and it was a lot of haying, milking the cow in the morning, planting your potatoes, doing all the gardening, kind of the classic stuff you might expect, firewood, and just wandering around the village. Or actually, for being like a village of, say, I don't remember how many it was, it might be 1,000 people in it, but it's pretty active. People don't sit around inside very much. Even it'll be -40 before they even close the schools. So at -38 degrees, all the kids walking to school and stuff, and everybody's outside. It's actually pretty cool. It's kind of interesting. I liked it.
Was there
Russian village life?
Was there, when you're living in the village, was there outdoor skills and hunting things like at that time where you're
Not
like, man,
a lot. It was more like farming type stuff. Yeah, it was more this little village farm stuff, I would say. The hunting, that is one cool thing about that makes you appreciate America and our conservation and stuff is, Siberia is huge, but around every village there's just a massive dead zone because anything that comes near it gets shot. So it's nice to have the management that we have over here because it actually does just produce more animals around. And of course, that's also having an affluent society, because not everybody that sees a deer is like, oh, I gotta eat that thing. I gotta eat.
That's the value. Yeah, the value system.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta kill it. I'd like there to be more than just one or two of them.
Right. Oh yeah, for
so
sure.
Eventually you left there or like migrated. I don't know how you.
So eventually that friend they had, they'd always tell me, oh, you got to go up north to Ura and meet them. And eventually he came down to sell some furs and invited me to come live with him. And yeah, long story short, I went up there, and he is not actually a nomad like where my story leads, obviously, but he's a fur trapper. And so he had this giant territory that he had somehow acquired after the Soviet Union fell that was his like personal trapping lands. And so he would take me out there and he'd show me the ropes on trapping. We'd go to these back, deep rivers and fish and, pack as many fish as you could in your backpack and lug them out. And then it was pretty cool. And then come winter, he kind of showed me the ropes and then let me loose on one section of his territory to open up these old trap lines that hadn't been used in decades, so
dude,
it was pretty intense. And that was a longer period. There I was about 5 weeks alone, but it actually went pretty well. It was pretty cool. I really liked it. It was probably, what was it, October, November in Siberia out there. You're just out there in the middle of nowhere.
How cold is it? How cold is it?
It would get pretty cold. November, it's starting to hit. I don't actually remember. It's not like I had a thermostat or anything. It was cold. I know the coldest it got while I was in Siberia that was with the nomads, but that was -58 or so.
Wow. So the fur trader, what was the fur trader's name again?
The fur trapper guy was Ura.
Ura. So when you meet Ura and you're in Siberia, like when you first lay eyes on this guy, does he look like, this because these people are kind of famous for reindeer herding and kind of the look that they have. Did he still have that look, or did he look just...
Well, he looks like more Mongolian than he does Russian, so he's got that style of look. And he actually is a cobbler, so he makes reindeer fur boots and stuff. So he's always got reindeer on. He's always wearing some fur stuff. And so in that way, yeah. But on the other hand, he's also lives in a village, so he's more like I don't know, refined or something.
He wasn't like he wasn't like texting on his BlackBerry or anything like that.
Exactly. Exactly. He was texting, so
Did you guys got along pretty well? I mean, obviously by then you learned some language. You learned a little bit of language.
Well, by then I had learned the language pretty well. That was probably a year or so into my time being there. And I'd learned it pretty well, and we were pretty comfortable. And I lived with them a lot. So in between, every time I'd go even to the natives, I'd stop at Ura's first and spend weeks with him. And we'd usually go out and do some fishing trip or do some stuff like that. We also we worked on projects together, trying to like, he's really aware of his people and his culture and their plight. And so he's always, he was thinking about ways to try to help revive their culture and help his friends who were stuck in like alcoholism stuff, trying to like get back into their ways. And so I would partner with him on trying little projects here and there like that. So we were pretty close and still are, but.
Well, he must have trusted you a lot to like let you loose on this trapping ground, huh?
Oh yeah. I guess he thought, either they get
nobody
or
else
just got
is out
nothing
there.
to lose. Yeah, nobody. Worst case scenario, nothing happens. But.
Did you feel like when you first encountered that, was that your first time spending a lot of time outdoors alone, or had you?
Yeah, that was probably the longest stretch, or definitely at that time, just alone. There's not that many other good reasons to be that alone that long in the woods, so. Unless you're just trying it out, but yeah, it just kind of came naturally.
But in this case, you had a mission, right? Like you were going to run those
and
trap
now I had a
lines.
mission, which was nice because it kept you busy. I'd definitely every morning wake up as soon as there was any light and get on your like Siberian like snow skis and just start heading out, and you wouldn't get back in till after dark. They're long nights, so.
And you were building shelters there too? Or?
Well, no, they'd have like a little hunting cabin, and if you picture like a spider web, every hunting cabin has all these runs off of it, and each run takes like a half a day to get out and a half a day to get back. And so you go to a hunting cabin and open up those 5 trap lines, spend a week there or whatever, and then maybe another full day hike to your next cabin, and you do the same, and you kind of had 3 cabins in like kind of a triangle, and spent the time doing that. It was actually really cool.
I'm like Googling all this stuff now. I might be planning a trip because
definitely.
It seems awesome to me.
Have you seen? I don't remember if we talked about it with Joe Rogan, but that Happy People documentary.
No,
it'd be worth watching. It's called Happy People, and it's on YouTube and stuff. But it's about fur trapping in Siberia. It's basically what we were doing. It's super, and it was filmed not far from us. And
really.
It was really fascinating.
What were you trapping mainly up there?
Sable. That's all.
Really? The whole thing?
Yeah, like pine martins.
Yeah.
Fur trade.
What kind of traps?
Foot traps mostly, and then some they have some of these. They're called a kulomka, which is like a wooden contraption. Before they had foot traps, they had those, and now. When I did it, it was like all his old trap lines he hadn't run for years, so it was all old, broken down stuff. Now, when they set up new ones, they use the more humane, body ones.
During that time, like one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because we talked about this on the show before. When I go out into the woods for any length of time, whether I'm alone or with a single person, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of just the idea that there's no modern convenience, right? There's nothing to fall back on. It's you and what you can do.
Yeah. And I didn't know, of course, at the time about any of the Garmin stuff or anything like that. Or even, I didn't even have a compass or anything. I was just out there. But no, go ahead. Follow your thought through?
I think that I've always kind of wanted to get inside people's heads that can do that. And there's two sides of it, right? Mm-hmm. One, the doing of it, right? The skills and the self-reliance and, understanding your own abilities. And then there's the going back to modernity and and having to deal with, and I think they cover this in Alone a good bit, about having to go back now to society and how hard it is to see an email come in or to sit in traffic or the existential threats and stuff we have in modern society. Did you ever? It doesn't sound like you ever considered that early on. Like it was just you were just out there doing it.
It's definitely something you kind of notice. All the times I went. My wife's from New York City, so I would go from the most remote place on earth, and a day later I'd fly back and be in New York. And I can't say I ever really noticed culture shock that much, oddly enough. Maybe it's just the way I am or something, but it wasn't, kind of felt normal. I don't know. I guess I expected it, but I will say when I leave those forest situations, there's definitely a part of me that dreads oh man, here comes messages and this and things to do. Everything there is just so directly related to your needs. It's so nice. You don't have to. It's just how we're meant to be, how we're wired to be. It's like, you know it because you've experienced it, I'm sure.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's just like, it's just how you're meant to be. And I don't know how else to explain it, but your whole mind is wired to live that way. And we're kind of in an odd situation in modern life. It's actually weird to experience that way of life and then not really be able to recreate it. Like, here I am in my house and, it can protect yourself from the elements and this and that. And it's comfort, but it doesn't add to like your fullness of life in any way. It's interesting.
Yeah. It just seems, it makes things seem silly. It makes modern life seem silly in so many ways when you just understand. Like you said, you're living by need. I'm hungry. Well, I better learn how to get food. Yeah, I better learn how to get
needs.
Food.
Yeah.
Yep, and you're not going to overeat because it would make no sense. You're not going to take it. Like your mind never gets a chance to veg out as we do, like watching TV. So there's just so much that.
Right. You think about. I'm always fascinated on that end. We're always so distracted here. You don't get very deep in your thoughts. In the wilderness, you get incredibly deep, and especially when you're alone and there's just no distractions. It's amazing what you'll think of, and your dreams are more vivid, and your it's interesting. It's more connected to the human experience for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think your story is interesting because this is a nice turn to take, like when you really like bought into this life and spent more time.
Yeah, so you're at some point, I don't remember the timeline exactly, but at some point he was like, well, I'm going to take you out to my, we had gotten close and he trusted me and all that. So he just took me out to his cousins who were all nomadic Evenki reindeer herders and took me out on a snowmobile, dropped me off at the teepee and like vouched for me to the guys and took off. And I was like, hey, but they took me in right away. Because they had Yura vouch for me. It was just, they were just like immediately started making jokes, like don't fart in the teepee and just being dorks. And they took me right in. It went pretty smoothly. And then it was fence building season, so we got right to work building fences.
I feel like they were just all talking about you, like, we got this guy. He's great at working, and he'll do anything. He's fun to be around. We'll ship him around.
Loved it.
We'll just pass him around. He's gonna be great. And so
I got some free food caches built out of the thing. Every time I went there, the first time I went there, one of the native guys, that right when after they dropped me off one of our first projects, he was in the process of building a food cache and in an elevated platform, and then he showed me how to do it, and I did a lot of the work, and he was like, wow, he really liked how it turned out. So then every time I went back, he'd always have me build a new one. I built several of those things over there. But yeah, it's good. You want to be helpful to the people you're with. An asset, of course. Yeah.
Can you just describe what it is to live with reindeer herders? Because I know there's some specific things about the Evenki that aren't common with other reindeer herding, tribes and other natives.
Yeah, around. I mean, it is still like they live in teepees and they're out in the forest. I know, like, the Evenki are one of the few reindeer herders that ride their reindeer in the summer like horses, So that's something unique to them, which is pretty awesome. And they
wait. I gotta stop you. You have to just describe for everyone the first time you saw an Evenki reindeer herder just riding a reindeer around. Like
that was that first right when they dropped me off, and some of the guys had been out searching for the reindeer, their big herd, and then they came riding back in. They got their like homemade hide ropes on them and stuff, and riding on their reindeer with their big, beautiful antlers and stuff. You're just like, dang, that is cool. And I didn't even know these people existed like that. It was all new to me, kind of. And it was fascinating. They of course put me on there, and I fell right off. They have those their saddles sit on there, and they're really loose. They're not like strapped on like a horse saddle, and you don't have stirrups, so you're kind of just using your body to balance. And And I definitely ate it a few times, plenty of times over the years.
And so do you have reins, or are you hanging on to the antlers?
You have it's a one rope system. So it's just, you have one, uzda it's called, but and then it's not in their mouth. It's just a bone on their forehead. So you pull it this way and pull it that way, and it pushes their head. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have correspondence with your family during this time? Were you able to
No, not while I was out there. I'd just be out there and then come back and, yeah.
Did they ever say where's Jordan at? Is he riding reindeer?
I hope so. I don't know if they did or not. It'd be nice if hopefully it crossed their minds at some point.
Where's he at? I think he's in Siberia.
No, I think they were pretty okay with it. I think they felt like I was in my purpose or whatever, doing what I felt I was supposed to be doing. So
yeah. So what did you learn? What did you learn about yourself there? This has to be, it's a transformative time in your life for, I'm sure, just the age you were. Because how old were you at this point?
Oh, I was probably 24 or something when I first hooked up with the natives up there. Yeah. I guess.
So I was probably wearing a suit and tie, starting my career in outdoor journalism, thinking I was going to be some hotshot reporter.
It's working pretty good.
That's all right, cutting up antelope, interviewing you. Ain't bad. But you're 24. This is a time where a lot of people are doing stuff like this, but not quite as extreme.
I thought that a lot consciously, where I was like, man, I should be trying to what am I doing? I should be getting a career or finding a wife or something. What am I doing out here? But I just felt really called. I felt like it was the place for me, and it was, and I learned a lot. I mean, you learn so much, and it's a lot. It's the idealism of it wears off pretty quickly, and you see the alcoholisms, and you're seeing suicides all the time, and all kinds of. I mean, quite frankly, it's pretty brutal over there in ways. And so then you want to try to help, and you try to help in this way and that way and this way. And a lot of times it doesn't really pan out. And sometimes it does. You kind of, it slaps you in the face with reality a lot. And it's from the outside, it looks really amazing, and it is really amazing. But there's so many issues too. And, that it helps you mature pretty fast, watching stuff happen.
I mean, I think that's interesting you say that, because there's a guy named Doug Clark who we had on, who spent 3 years living with whale hunters in the far Pacific. And he described the same thing, where it seemed like in the beginning he really wanted to take his shirt off, jump in the ocean with a spear, and he was just feeling the primal nature of it. But then after a while, he started to know the people and see their struggle with modernity, and the younger kids had cell phones and wanted to go into town, and the elders wanted to keep the traditions. Yeah. So did you see that? It sounds like you might have seen something.
Same thing. Yeah. It's when my wife went over there with me, and she described it well, and that it feels like there's just a dam with 1,000 holes, and you just try to plug one, and there's another one, as far as their culture surviving. And I really hope it does, and I think it can, but I also think it is on the brink like that, because a lot of the, for one, the women don't want to go out in the woods and live out there as much as the men. Quite frankly, they don't have as cool of a time out there, because they mostly are in the teepees and beating and cooking food, whereas the guys are always out hunting and trapping. And so, so there's fewer women that want to go out there. But then, because of that, a lot of the guys will stay in the village. But usually, the less motivated guys, so they'll be the most alcoholic. But they'll be the ones getting the women, while the coolest dudes, are out there in the forest, reindeer herding and doing awesome stuff, but they don't have any partners. And so then, the draw of the village is very strong. But when you're in the village, everybody just drinks, and that's the way it's been for a long time. So there's just this cycle, and there's people there, just the alcoholism's off the charts, even on a Russian standard. It's just crazy.
Even on the Russian standard. Yeah, I mean, that's it's interesting, because it's a, when I think of it, I think, man, I wish I could live like that. And even when we're talking about, I go out and hunting for 6 days, and I come back home, and I just think, man, the push-pull.
There.
Yeah, the push-pull of this sucks, because I would love to just stay there.
Yeah.
But this what I've built here, this real comfortable thing, is awesome. I really love this too. So it sounds like they have the same push pull.
It's so cool. I mean, yeah, it is. It's really interesting to see that way of life and see that it can be. I mean, in a lot of ways, it can be better than our modern way of life. But there's this awkward period, I feel like, where it's like somehow it's got to survive through this uncomfortable transition period. Like I wish there would have been more Native American cultures that were saved to today when people would appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because in the late 1800s, not enough outsiders appreciated and like stood up for it. But the natives that lived those ways really liked it. You know, they wanted to continue those ways, but they couldn't. And then it got lost, and now it's kind of gone and you can't really bring it back. Well, it feels like over there, it's similar, except it's not gone yet, but you know, the young guys don't really appreciate it. And it's like, even the word reindeer herder in Russian can kind of be like an insult. You know, it's like, oh, so it's not like esteemed yet, but I feel like it will be. And when it is, they have a lot of opportunities even to economically grow and stuff. The problem is it's like the alcoholism, and it's such a one-sided issue they have. Like, the people are so nice and so cool, hardworking, all this and that, and then it's just alcoholism. That's like, seems like it's so weird. It's like it's not like in the States where people have the, you know, you feel like, I don't know, someone might not drink, but they don't have, you know, they might have other issues. It's like over there, it just seems like, well, that's the issue. You know, it's odd. Really.
Do you think is it a cultural issue, or is it a genetic issue, or do you feel like it's a despair?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? I think it's probably both. Like, I think it probably, I imagine genetics play a role, but I also, you know, you could explain a lot of it just by the way their cultural path followed, like forced collectivization during the Soviet Union, and then the aftermath of that was just they became dependent kind of on the government, which for a while worked because the Soviet Union put a lot of money towards them, kind of invested in it, but then when it collapsed, you know, it was one generational hit during forced collectivization, then a second generational hit when it all collapsed, and then it's like there's just not a lot left of it. All the shamans were sent to prison camps, and all the rich, you know, reindeer herders, anyone that had 500 reindeer was sent to prison camps, you know, and it was just the dumbest stuff. And then when it was privatized, the same thing happened. Like, it was, the Russians just came in and bought all the reindeer and butchered them all and sent them to meat shops because they had the assets to purchase them, whereas the natives didn't. And so they'd spent all their generations building these herds, and they just got bought. And anyway, just sloppy, rough stuff. So that could explain a lot of the alcoholism.
But I think it's repeated. It's repeated through history so much in different ways. But if you listen to or read the book *Sapiens*, right? I was listening to that. I was listening to that audiobook on the way back from Antelope, and they talk about the author talks about this idea of the change from hunter-gatherer civilizations to agriculture. You know, 70,000 years ago. Right. We go from this idea that the sick and the elderly would be killed. The young men in some of these native tribes around the world their job would be to kill the slow, the sick, the weak, the elderly, because if you couldn't move, you couldn't live. And those harsh conditions. But then when we started to have agriculture, we started to settle, life started to get easier in some ways, but then we cultivated disease and some of the diseases of civilization.
Yeah, was it in *Sapiens* too? I can't remember which book I was reading. Might have been *Sapiens*, but where he talked about the point that, though quite honestly, until maybe really recently, the hunting-gatherer cultures probably had a higher like life satisfaction than the people that lived in these like, you know, medieval Russian.
Yeah, I've seen it put multiple ways, but that's the way that in *Sapiens* it goes. That he more fantasizes and kind of says, "Hey, look, if the people that lived in these hunter-gatherer societies were more fulfilled, they might not have lived long lives. They might have died young, but they truly did live just like you were saying when you were alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're living off need. You're living off. There is more Darwinism. The healthy survive, the weak do not.
Well, what's weird now is that we could almost have the best of both worlds, right? Because now we don't have to die if we have a bad hunt. You know what I'm saying? Like we can have noodles stored up in the food cache, and you know, like now there's safety nets. But the problem is we don't have almost any of that culture left to like revive. You know, like so.
It's tough. I mean, there's something that you can do, and people that listen to this podcast know that I have the life knife analogy where I'm like, man, if you go out in the woods, it sharpens you in a way that you can deal with everything else in your life so much better. And if you're in like a 9-to-5 cubicle job, it dulls you up in a way that you just can't deal with a lot of stuff. You get existential stress and these things. But just 3 or 4 days in the woods alone is enough to just give you
a bit, huh?
Yeah, it's like, and also gives you a little inkling of what it was like to think that way and act that way, and that's enough, I think, to kind of balance things where maybe they weren't balanced before.
Yeah, that'd be cool for people to do. Just get out there, like even if you don't, you can take supplies. You don't have to starve for a week, but go out for a week and see where your mind goes and stuff. Like you might realize even in your where your issues are that you need to deal with when you get back out, because they might start popping up in your head like, oh, geez, this.
Well, and it's also that if you've ever taken things for granted, if you take the taste of a cheeseburger for granted, try going out and not having one for a long time and then coming back and getting a chance at one. And you'll, I would hope you would appreciate, maybe not, maybe you just
depends on how well the hunt went, I guess.
That's right. Well, what else from your time at the Evenki? Because eventually this, you talk about it a lot in the show alone. I think it's a big part of why you probably won the show, but what else did you learn? What else do you want people to know from that time? Because it's a unique thing that you went through.
Yeah, that's a pretty broad. There is so much that I learned, really, and it was interesting. I don't know. Life's just a path, and so at the time, I was, like I said earlier, I was seeking out certain experiences and this and that, and then you learn that experiences aren't all that it's all about, because I'm going to forget those anyway. So then you try to get on a deeper level, like, okay, well, relationships matter and the love I express to these people. And then you roll with that, and then you sometimes, even in that, you get a little bit disappointed or something. What's the right word? But, you get let down because somebody you invest a lot in, all of a sudden, they just shot themselves. Well, that's sucks, and then my wife's good friend over there, the lady that reached out to my wife the most, they connected really well. She a couple years ago just drank too much and froze to death, and you're just like, well, man, all that relationship invested, and it just makes you think about that. And then, but that's what I fall back on, is that's what's important, is investing in people and relationships and lives, and move forward with that. And that goes with here or in Siberia or wherever you are, that's experiences are great too, but really
and there's no matter how simple life is, you would imagine an Evenki reindeer herder, their life would be labeled as simple based on our standards. And no matter how simple your life is, you don't escape human problems and the human reality that everybody struggles.
They have some rough stories over there. I could go on about those, but it's hard, and they still have all the human struggles. But again, it's a weird thing. It's so weird because it just seems so, their vice or whatever, their problem seems so one-dimensional. It's like, it's just the alcohol. It's like, other than that, it's like they're awesome people, hard work and this and that, but suicide rate, like 1 out of 3 people die from suicide, accident, or murder over there. It's like, it's insane. It's like, I don't know.
Well, and then you have these small communities, right? Where it just, man, I'd love to really know or try to suss out, is it the alcoholism of despair? Because I've had some alcoholics in my family, and it never felt like, I wasn't super close to it. My uncle died from alcoholism, but it just felt like it was never it manifested itself in like socially being drunk all the time. I'm sure there was despair involved, but it didn't seem like I'm going to drink myself to death. It just says like, I drink a lot. Oh man, I can't stop.
Yeah.
So
it's hard. You know what? I've not been able to parse it completely. Like sometimes it just blows my mind because somebody will have a lot going for them, and it's just they just drink it away. And then sometimes it's completely explicable. Like, oh, this guy's third wife just died, so no wonder he's depressed. And like there's a lot of. There's both. It runs the gamut, and
sure.
But maybe that sometimes it makes you wonder, like, is there a propensity for it? There must be some of that at play too. I just don't know, but
there has to be something involved. But so eventually you left. Have you gone back?
Not
since you left?
I had a kid. So my wife was over there when she was pregnant, and now I got a daughter who's 4. And
awesome.
She was, born in the States, and we've been here ever since. We actually wanted to go back this fall, but of course it was coronavirus, so everything was closed. But we stay in contact with them and stuff. I'm still in touch. I talked to Yura a couple days ago.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so we plan to go back. But
yeah, I was gonna say you intend to have them be
so
a part of your
much more
life.
Expensive now. I got all these extra kids.
Dude, I'm with you. I got a 4-year-old too, and a 9-month-old.
Got it. Yeah. Tickets just doubled all of a sudden.
Yeah, those plane flights are a little more expensive than they were before. And the food,
definitely,
and the screaming.
Amazing. Yeah, it's all tougher now.
Yeah.
No, but I'm gonna make we're making a point of staying connected over there and this and that. So
that's good.
That's
well, when you get back the first time, what did you do next? I mean, obviously, you had a lot of experience, but you didn't, like you said, you hadn't really started a life in America.
Yeah, well, fortunately, on one of my trips back, because I'd come back to the States, earn money working, and then head back to Russia and kind of spend it. And that's kind of what I did for 10 years. Spent like 5 years in total in Russia. And then, but during some of those times back, I had met my wife, and we got married on one of my trips back. And then she went over with me for a winter with the natives, and then a summer, and then we had the baby. Came back, and I was just kind of doing the usual thing. I was renovating some houses, and I was actually building a driveway when Alone called, because I had watched Alone, and I'd you think to yourself, I could do that.
Dude, that's all I think.
Thought of that.
That's all I think. That's all that I think. I'm like, that's a nice little house you built there, but I would have probably had an annex that had a bathtub I've built out of stone.
I'd recommend you for the show. I'd say they should throw you on there. No,
please. My wife, don't tell my wife. When my wife watches it with him, she's like, you want to be on there, don't you? I was like, yeah, I do.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there, because they're great and they're super friendly, and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth.
Anyway, I was sending my little application and a link to my YouTube videos, living with the natives and stuff, because I had filmed a lot of it on my crappy little camera. But and I think they watched it, but I forgot that I had applied, and they didn't contact me for like 3 years. And I was just working on that driveway, and they called me out of the blue and wanted me to come on. It's like, oh.
Did you follow the show?
I had watched the first 2 seasons at once. Like, my buddy told me about them, and we binge watched them. And that's when I sent in the application. And then I kind of forgot about it through seasons 3 and 4, and then I remembered it, and then watched them all again. I was caught up by the time I went out there. I'd watched them all. It was a cool show. I don't really watch a lot of TV, but it was the only show that I would be like, oh, I forgot about that show. I got to watch that.
So my dad called me and said, have you seen this show Alone? I said, no, it's not my thing, man, because when I watch that, I'm just like, this is so full of shit, and this is this reality TV.
Totally.
There's usually crazy people on there, and I resisted it for so long. It was on Netflix, and it would always suggest it to me. It's like in the algorithm. It's like, hey, you want to watch this? You should watch this. Watch this. I'm like, no, I'm not watching that. But finally, just like you watched seasons 1 and 2, I started binging it in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, damn, I'm watching this every night for 2 hours.
It's a pretty good show.
It's a great show, man. I take back everything I thought about the show, because they do the normal reality show things. They do.
Yeah, they do. The editing into this and to that and the drama. It's all there. But you guys, so give people a quick... But the stories, what's happening is real. Yeah.
Give what is the show, if you would describe it?
Oh, it's just it's a show where they get 10 people and drop them off separately with no cameraman. You're just by yourself, and you have 10 basic items, like not a gun, but like a bow and arrow and a
I'd be like,
I'll take for sparking fires and stuff.
I'll take 10 guns.
A gun and 10 rounds.
Yeah, that's what I'm
nothing else.
I'll be fine. Don't worry.
So you're really out there with not much, and you basically film yourself, and they come and give you new batteries and check your footage and make sure you're not medically unable to continue every once in a while. And other than that, you're just out there, and it's whoever lasts the longest wins, basically. So,
and what do they obviously call you and say, we want you to be on the show. And then what's the conversation they like? We're going to come get you, and we're going to take you and drop you. We're not going to tell you where, or
well, I knew the premise of the show, so yeah, I kind of knew that's what was in the cards, but they didn't tell you where you were going to be until a couple weeks before, the fly out date. So you don't have a ton of time to think about it and prepare. But yeah, and then they take you out there. You got a week or so learning how to film yourself and do camera work. And then they fly out on a helicopter and drop you off with your stuff and leave. And you're just like, wow, this is weird.
This is the show.
Yeah, this is the show. It's like you're just out in the middle of nowhere. You've never scouted this place. You have no idea. Like, you wouldn't have chosen to. That was what stuck out to me. Is like, I just wouldn't have chose this spot. Like, why am I here?
That's what I was mad. I was mad watching this. I'm like, don't they have Onyx maps? Like, why can't they choose a spot that's like has a nice little fishing
nice
hole,
little deep shoreline or something would be nice. Yeah, fishing hole would have been sweet.
It would have been great. A nice little bog for the moose to hang out. Something
You got all the things you think about that it's never like you picture it. But then you get there. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, So what did you pick? What were your 10 things, and why? Where did you?
I should be able to rattle these off real easy. An axe for sure, because like the Evenki, as they would say, that's the one tool you need to live in the woods. Like, if you have an axe, you might be able to make it without anything else. Definitely need an axe. That's 101. And then a saw I took, which was I was really on the fence. Like, I never really used a saw in the woods that much, like a hand saw, but I figured it might save me some calories, so I took that, which was probably my only mistake. Like, if I was going to change it, that's what I would switch up.
Yep.
And then took a pot, and I took a frying pan, and a Leatherman, and a ferro rod, and a sleeping bag, and bow and arrows, trapping wire, fishing line, and something else that I'm missing in there. And then this next season they do after mine, season 7, they have a 100-day cap. So that was the first season where they put a limit on it, which was weird. But
yeah. So that seems weird. But so you kind of know that, somewhere around 60 to 80 days, that's what you're prepping for. Like
not really. I actually I told myself there was zero chance that it would end before 90 days. It didn't even cross my mind. And honestly, out there, it didn't even, I had no clue that it was about to end. I thought, and I was actually prepared to stay another few months. Like, I had plenty of food, and my weight was still what it is right now. I was shocked. I had done such a good job convincing myself that there was no chance that it would end any before day 90 that I didn't even.
Well, because I'm sure this idea, the idea of hope, like the idea of saying tomorrow might be the day. Sometimes
I would joke with myself when I go to hear a medical flight coming in. I'd be like, oh, maybe this is it. But it's like, I would just kind of be kidding myself, and I knew it. But like on the medical check where they did come and tell me it was over, I hadn't even had that thought. I just didn't even cross my mind that it might be over. I was shocked.
Yeah, and then to skip to the end, your wife just pops out of the trees.
Yeah, they got me good. I definitely thought they had not let on that it was close at all. I didn't think it was.
Well, that's awesome. What about, is there anything about the show when you watched it back, assuming that you watched it back, that you thought was contrived or can just completely how you thought it would go?
They don't contrive it, but they definitely made it look like they covered up how much food I had. If anything, to make it more. They definitely made it look like I struggled in a way more than I did, which is fine. But it was annoying for me to watch because I wanted to see the big fish I caught and the different things like that I didn't get to see because they had to make it more suspenseful. So if I had a complaint, that was it. But nothing's contrived. Like it's all there, and it's all footage that I sent in. Like there's definitely, I was out there, 77 days. There's days where I was like, man, this sucks. Like, I can't eat enough moose to stay fat or what, and in my mind, I was thinking the show was going to go 140 days. So then when I would count my moose, I'd be like, man, I don't have enough fat to make it 100 more days. And then I'd be like, man, I don't have enough moose fat. And then, that might get in there, that me complaining about not having enough food when I'm thinking that it, in context, it's relative to.
Yeah, and we make some TV around here.
You got to do it.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you know what you want to happen, and if sometimes you manipulate little things to kind of build suspense where it might have been flat. So I could see him doing that when I was watching the show. But there's points in the show that are real, right? You shot a moose.
The whole thing's real. It's all real footage, and they don't tell you to do anything. Like, it's not like they go out there and they're like, hey, we want you to do this or whatever. I don't know. They don't. So they use all your real footage that you send in. But yeah, the moose hunt, that was all genuine stuff. That was intense as can be. That was like the most up and day down in my life, because you know how it is hunting. It's always, golly, if you shoot it and you're so excited, I just like, oh man, it all worked, because I had made this whole contraption to funnel moose into a certain area, and it worked, and I got the shot on the moose. I was super excited. But then, of course, as it happens, you lose your blood trail, and you lose your, you can't find any more tracks, and then you're just like, no way, I can't lose this. The consequences are so much greater in that situation that it's just super intense. And then, It's like, well, there's no blood. I saw bubbly blood. He's hitting the lungs. I'm just going to walk downhill because he probably went downhill. And then so you stay along the shore. And then sure enough, I stumbled across him. Like, there he is up there. And you get all excited. And then you're like hiding behind a bush. But then you see him stand up and you're just like, no. Like, no way he's going to run off right now. But then he doesn't. He lays back down. And you're all relieved. It was such an emotional roller coaster, unlike any I've ever been on. Because you're so reliant on that thing.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, people that listen to this show know that I'm always saying, like, man, if I could, the one thing that I wanted to do was feel what it felt like to hunt because I had to have the food.
Yeah. Yeah, it was unbelievable. Like, that's an experience I won't forget because that was the most intense hunt ever because you're so reliable on it. And when you get it, when I finally walked up to it and I touched my arrow to its eyeball and it was just dead as dead can be, you're just like, oh my gosh. There's pure excitement. There's no way I could redo that situation no matter what. Yeah.
That's so damn primal. And I wish... the reason why I'd want if they would ever have me on the show, and if you're listening to this alone casting agents, I'm down to do it. Just reach out to my people, Phil the engineer. Reach out to Phil the engineer. When I look at that, I'm like, man, that's the one reason I would do it because I want to fish and
opportunity
hunt.
Yeah.
Fish and hunt.
And fishing was the same, man. It was just so fun. The funnest fishing I've ever had. And plus, it was the biggest fish I'd ever caught. You know, all the fish were the biggest fish I ever caught.
You guys were catching lake trout, right?
Yeah, lake trout. But, there's the one was like 23 pounds. And it's just on your little homemade stick and reel that you've rigged together. And it's barbless hooks. And it's so intense the whole time. And, you finally landed. It's the same thing. It's like pure joy that you cannot replicate anywhere else. It's pretty neat.
Well, that throughout the show, all the other contestants, you included, that was the one thing. When I was watching, I'm thinking, man, if I'm an anti-hunter or a non-hunter or somebody that doesn't know what it's like to kill an animal, and I see these people going through this, at least then maybe I can watch a hunter in the modern sense do the same kind of dance when they shoot something and have some kind of understanding of what they might be feeling.
Yeah, why they're so excited. Yeah.
Because every time you came back with 4 rabbits, I felt like they were, like your storyline wasn't quite true to actually as it happened, as you mentioned there, because you would come back with 4 rabbits and they would cover that like very briefly.
Yeah.
And then somebody else would spend 6 days looking for a rabbit, and that would get covered quite a bit.
You're very observant. No, for me watching it was a little frustrating, but I understood it. But because then they had to, because of that, they couldn't show a lot of the cool stuff because they had to make it more.
They couldn't show you reading a book,
So that's why I didn't get to see any of my fishing. I just made it. It looked like I just lost all my hooks and didn't catch any fish, and it was over. And I was like, "What? No way!"
So, how many fish did you catch along the way?
13, but they're just such big fish. I was like, "Golly!" And they're all exciting, and I don't know. I did catch one Arctic. Grayling that wasn't that big. All the rest were big old fish. Yeah.
Did you feel like that you ever had a moment where you were worried you were going to call and ask to be taken out of there or be medically taken out?
No, it never got close at all. I thought I can't get into FIO. There's some production details they don't want us to get into, as far as if I thought I was too skinny at some points, but I never was too skinny at some points, but that was the only thing I was worried about because I just figured if I ever leave here, it's because I'm going to be too skinny. And so, it would never was an issue. I really thought, okay, we're going to get to day 90 and then we're going to get started. It's going to be I figured a few of us would make it to day 90 but nobody's going to quit then. I figured then from then on, it would be the push. That's where we're going to stretch it way out and see how far we can go. So I was doing everything I could to accumulate everything I could until day 90 and then see if I could push through January or into February. And then I figured I'd win. But so before that, I hadn't had that thought, honestly. I got the moose at day 20. And once I had a moose, it's like, you're not going to quit.
That's a t-shirt. If I got a moose, I ain't quitting. out of here, son.
Totally.
Did you ever have like a mental drill that you would do, or did you ever check in on your mental status and try to keep yourself healthy, out there by yourself?
It's always you have to stay active. Like, you really have to stay active, and you get a lot of trials that come, and you have to approach them proactively. It would be easy to be like, oh, this sucks. I can't do this or that. But staying mentally active is a big thing. And I did that I had a lot of different outlets for doing that. Ideally you're doing something productive that's mentally engaging, so that's what I would try. But you honestly, as much as when you're watching the show, you're always like, why are those idiots sitting around? Get out. It's like, you can't actually be a productive 100% of the time, even though I tried. There's just times where you just don't really have anything to do. And so in those times, I would film stupid skits and just try to, encourage myself by coming up with dumb things to do like that. And you'd kind of journal to your camera. So you might talk to your daughter or your wife or your son, I'd try to think about deep or politically charged issues and see if I could think of unifying solutions and things, all that kind of stuff. And
you're like Gandhi alone.
Yeah.
Gandhi alone, trying to figure out the world's ills, man.
Exactly. Do all that while you're
Did
out
you
there.
ever have, because when I've done, a couple of weeks away, and again, nothing, I'm not, no comparison to what you've done, but I've always found once I had a little baby, once I had my son, it was so much harder. I could not,
I was undecided on whether it was harder or not with kids, because for one, because it's harder when you don't have any prize out there, but so when you're out there, you're like, man, I'm out here a week, I haven't seen the kids, kind of miss them. But when there's a big monetary prize, that's like, man, that's so much time with the kids. I work dumb construction jobs. I know how much work do I have to do to make up for that kind of money. It's that's a lot of time with the family. So it put it in pretty good perspective. But and the other thing is just having gone to Russia for long periods of time, I have the perspective that a year will pass and I'll come back and my loved ones will still be my loved ones. And, the relationships are strong. It's not like I have insecurities there. But, yeah, you miss the kids. You definitely, that's what you think about all the time. But, you kind of just keep it in perspective. And it's like, you know what? 3 months isn't that long. If this show goes 3 months, it's fine. I'll get home and I'll be like, hey, how was it? And they'll be like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah, here's a briefcase with $500,000.
Yeah, now we're all caught up. Okay, turned out it wasn't that simple because it was actually a lot harder on my wife than me. So because she had to deal with the kids and they were young. I had a 2 and a 3 or something year old, really young kids, and they were sick the whole time and this and that. She lost more weight than I did. Honestly, she had a hard time, but.
Yeah, I feel that too. I know how that is.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things in the world is a Garmin InReach.
Right, those are awesome. Yeah, I just got to use one this summer for the first time.
Yeah, so you're just like, man, if I could text my wife and just say, "How are you?" and she can say, "Not doing great," then you can recalibrate. When you, unlike you have the choice to go back and you don't have anything really riding on other than health or something.
Yeah, you can kind of make that decision a little more. So go ahead.
Oh, I don't want to leave the best thing for last, but you killed a Wolverine with your axe, man.
That was talking about when I think about primal. That was the most primal experience because I wasn't really I had been built up for so long. The thing kept coming and harassing me, and I'd spent a lot of nights awake with my bow and arrow in my shelter and a pile of meat out front, just hoping that they would come and. Trying all these different things to get them. I knew it was going to go down at some point, but then when it finally did, it's not like the moose where it was just oh man, this is up and down and up and down. It was just it just happened so fast and I went over there and I still have, it's the imprint. I can still picture memory it where it was like snarling at me and jumping at me, but he was stuck with his arrow. So
Yeah, so you stuck him to the ground with an arrow?
well, the night before he had been behind a bush, and I was like, I don't want to shoot him because he's behind the bush. So I was waiting for him to come out from behind the bush, but it was nighttime. And so I was just watching his eyes, and then he like turned his head and his eyes went away, and then I was like, where is he? Where is he? And he had just vanished. And I was like, what? Oh no, I should have just shot. Like, what an idiot. And then, so the next night, the same scenario kind of played out where he ran through my warning system. I heard the cans rumble. So I like ran outside, kind of set the camera up where I thought where his trail was. And then, sure enough, he came scurrying down it. But then he kind of paused behind these bushes. And that was just, I was like, well, tonight I'm going to shoot him behind the bushes. I just sent an arrow in, and I don't know, it deflected through there and stuck him through the hind leg. And, the arrow stuck into the ground, but also was still in the shrubs on the top, on the alders. And so it just hung him up enough to where I grabbed that axe and ran over there. And, it all happened really fast. I grabbed the axe, ran over there, swung. My first swing, disemboweled him. And then he spun around and, he was spinning around mad. And then I swung again. And the next one hit him. And then I just swung a bunch. But then it ended and you're just like, wow, I didn't think about any, I hadn't thought about any of that. He's like, wow, that was crazy. I just can't believe I killed a Wolverine with an axe. And then you're just like, whoa, that was wild.
If you're making a show like Alone and that happens and you get your reaction like they did, they
were pretty excited, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes. I'm sure the producers were like, we got it.
Yeah.
This is it.
This one's going on Netflix. No.
Jonas killed a Wolverine with his hatchet like a madman. But you were
there's
protecting
a slight bit of me that kind of regrets not grabbing the camera and bringing it with me, but I don't know if they would have shown it, so maybe it's better that I left it like it was. But
probably. I think it was perfect for what it was because you knew what happened, you could hear it, you saw your reaction, you're all wide-eyed when you came back from that. I think it was well done in that regard, but it just goes to show people how when I'm watching this, I'm kind of watching it through the lens of somebody who thinks a lot about all the issues with wildlife and making shows, right? Same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of how are they trying to tell the stories based on how they happen? But then what can people learn from this? Mm-hmm. What can they see? Well, they can see that in a scenario where you're just trying to survive, there's no room for compassion for the Wolverine because
you just couldn't coexist in that situation. There just wasn't. It wasn't an option. It was like he or me, and we both knew it.
He knew it. You knew it.
I tried many times to get him to stay away, and he was trying to make it through the winter. So
man, he was trying to get some. He got a taste for moose.
I can't blame him for that. But he got a lot of good food before he went.
That's right.
But it was definitely thought about that. It's like in those situations, it is like, of course you love nature and this and that, but it's in some situations you kind of feel pitted against it, and that was definitely one of those situations. Yeah.
That's a good point. Is there anything for people that watch the show or didn't, in terms of foraging or skills? Because you did a lot of stuff. Obviously, you built a shelter.
Mm-hmm.
You built you built some skis for ice skis, I'd imagine, and a bunch of other things. Are there any other things that you did out there that you either did for the first time or now that's just essential knowledge for somebody who likes to go outside?
Oh man. I should. There's a lot of things. Of course, they didn't show a lot of things. I got to think about what I thought. But of course, there was a ton of foraging. You're always foraging. I was always drinking there's all the little so many details. Like I would always drink hot water instead of cold water because you're just saving calories by preheating it. And then you're always drinking teas, so you're getting vitamins when you're drinking your water. It's things like stacking your hot rocks around your water before you go to bed so that it doesn't freeze solid, and sleeping with a hot rock in your sleeping bag. And there's so many little details, but the cool thing about it is when you put yourself in those situations, your ingenuity starts to come alive, because when you're in the modern world, everything's kind of figured out for you and you don't have to think that much as much, like whereas out there, it's like you're getting these really specific problems and you have to come up with a solution or you're going to fail, so it's like, it's very, very direct once again. And so that you can kind of, hopefully you can rely on your ingenuity to arrive for you out there when you need it. And because that's one thing I felt was really cool. I felt very creative out there, whereas I don't feel creative usually because I'm not like an artist or anything. But when you're out in those situations, it's like, oh, this is where creativity came from. Like you're just trying to figure out solutions to these problems. And hopefully when you guys go out there for your little week alone and you come across little problems, you'll find like, hey, that's cool. I just thought of a solution, like, or like, and
yeah.
So that's the broadest way to say, and rather than just giving you a million little examples of this and that. Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, man. And because as I, like I said, I knew we were going to chat and I was listening to Sapiens and I was thinking, man, this is just the way my brain works. But, all the things that you were learning out there, all the things that you were doing were very human. They were that you were kind of recreating how we came to be where we are, and in a lot of crazy ways. Right. And to know that you've kind of seen. Not only have you seen, I felt like a lot of the other contestants had maybe played at this a little bit, or trained for it, or had like woodcraft skills, but had never done what you'd done in terms of living with the Evenki and having that perspective. So you've seen experience. You've seen different sides of it. But yeah, I mean, did you ever think about, was it, because the one thing that I did, the question was in my mind is, did you think about the money as much as they portrayed in the show? Not you personally, but it kind of kept coming back to that.
Well, it did. That was my motivating factor for going out there, because it's like I can do all this stuff for free and I have a lot. So it's like, so if I'm really honest, I'm going out there because it's an opportunity to win a lot. When I was out there, I found it almost went in reverse, where I kind of went out there, well, because it is a chance at a $500,000. Of course, I'm going to try it because it's right up my alley. But then when I was out there, I realized there were actually, and before, I remember telling History Channel guys before I went that I wanted to leave something for my kids to see and descendants to see that I wish I had of my grandparents. Like I wish I had footage of my grandparents doing their thing in life, so I could know them more than just pictures and stories. And in the same way, I wanted to have that. And when I was out there, I was realizing, oh, this is cool because I can share this not only with my descendants, but even my immediate family. Because a lot of times, like you're in town right now and I'm in town right now. We're just living in our little houses. People don't know that aspect of us. Not all, a lot of my friends and family don't. And so it was cool to be able to be like, oh, I can share this with my loved ones, actually. Like there's an aspect of me not everybody gets to see. And so I was really motivated by that also.
That's, and then you have like, well, Uncle Jordan's cool as shit. he made skis out of some trees in the woods.
It's inspired a lot of fun backyard activity around here. That's good amongst the kids. A lot of Wolverine hunts down in the playroom.
I love it, man. What did your kids like? It sounds like your kids are old enough to kind of say a few things about it. What do they say?
What do they say? They reenact it a lot. They just play. They play those games a lot. Hunt the moose and they hunt the Wolverine, and they're worried about Wolverines at night, which is odd in Virginia, but
you try to explain that to them.
Yeah. Don't worry, they're around.
Only in comic books, not in real life.
Yeah, those aren't real animals. Then it's become a part of the and of course it's bled into so many other things now we're doing survival courses and writing a book and blah blah blah. So it's kind of affected more of their stuff. It's affected our lives trajectory, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Did when you got back? I mean, obviously, like I said, I listened to you on Rogan and other places. And so obviously there was plenty of attention when you got back. It's like, how did that go for you?
All right. It's like I'd actually quit all my social media, a good while before I went on the show. And I actually was really happy. I was like, man, I'm glad I don't do that because it's just wasting my time. And now, though, it's a part of, I've had to dive back into that stuff. And I really like connecting people that are genuinely interested, and this is how we connect and that. It's so necessary, but at the same time, I can sense its ability to suck away our time and what we're really.
Yeah.
It gets you in that half distracted mode, which is super annoying. And so it's like trying to navigate that has been the most annoying part of it all. Because before I could just be like, forget it. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'll buy an old Nokia or something. But now it's like, now I can't really. So now I have to actually figure out how to navigate that more.
Man, can I relate to that?
Yeah.
I do want people, we do this podcast, and the podcast is the thing I enjoy the most because it's just talking to cool people and telling shit stories and just whatever makes me laugh or makes me interest me, right? It's enjoyable. Mm-hmm. But the social media stuff, there is some poison in there.
Yeah.
And I don't think my personal feelings, it's not what most people would say. For me, it's what you said. It's just addicting. It's this swipe.
Exactly. That's what it is.
Swipe.
It's just something to be there every time you're mildly bored. It's like, it's like, dang it. Like,
I get depressed sometimes. When I last traveled, I was on a rental car shuttle. I'm sitting on this rental car shuttle, and I'd been on my phone the whole flight, and I looked up, and I was kind of like in a daze, even when I wasn't looking at my phone.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I had been in this virtual world, and I had to readjust to like walking around the airport. And I get this rental car shuttle, and I decided to turn my phone off and just like for the drive home, I just wasn't going to look at my phone. And I was going to go see my family. And I was in this rental car shuttle, and I was looking around. There's 15 people in there. It's COVID. They're all wearing their mask. Every single one of them was deep into the phone. Like, I could have probably taken all of their wallets out of their pockets. Yeah. No one would have known.
Oh, and man, that feels so impersonal, that world. Masked and phoned. Here's
it's like, man, you can't imagine. You couldn't have explained this to the Evenki. You couldn't take them and drop them here and say like, this is what these people are doing. They'd be like, well, that's ultimately
dude, it's better. It's way better.
Yeah. They're like, no, it's not. It's awful.
Yeah, I feel really hacked at times. Like they hacked my brain. It's annoying. It's enough to try to overcome it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get those moments where you feel like you're reaching for your phone when it's not there.
Yeah.
Or, the syndrome. The
we all
missing
know how
limb
that
syndrome.
Is.
Yeah. So I don't mind that. People will always complain about the comments and the negativity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind that. That's the discourse of the world that I live in. But it's more just the idea, the addiction of the thing. It's like what it is. That sucks so much. And I'll tell you, when I go in the woods and come back, the most stress I feel is when I pick up my phone and it gets service again, and I start hearing the ding, 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 ding.
Exactly. That's exactly me. Like we'll be riding back, coming out of the woods, and you're just like, oh man, it's that little dread you get because your phone's coming, but you can't not do it.
There has to be some irony for you, right? Because you got famous by going out in the woods and being alone, and then when you come back,
now I'm literally spent all day today doing a website. I was like, how do I figure this out? And then my brother was laughing at me because I had my sister watch the kids, and he was like, "Oh, cool, you're going hunting?" I was like, "Oh no, I'm doing a podcast." He was like, "Oh, times have changed."
I used to be out doing what I like. Now I have to be on social media.
I'm enjoying this a lot, but it's just a part of all comes with the territory. But it's up to us to figure out how to navigate it well, and we're all work in progress. So hopefully we improve.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, a lot of people would love to be in that situation to teach other people like you can, or to be known, because now you'll be known for a while. It'll fade, I'm sure. It's like the guy from Alone, the guy who went Alone. Is that ever felt weird to you, or is this you knew that going in that if you won, you're a guy on TV,
or whatever? That doesn't feel really weird. I guess it probably just goes with my personality that didn't get culture shock. It just feels kind of this. It's whatever. Just like kind of roll with it. But it's fun. Like I always thought it was hilarious when I get recognized not that much here in Lynchburg. I went up to Idaho, and every time I went to like Black Sheep, like the outdoor store, it's like you could just count it on the clockwork. Somebody be like, "Hey!" It's like, "Oh, I guess that's the demographic."
You should just troll. You should troll everybody every time you go into like an outdoor store. Just wear like a Wolverine hat.
Yeah, totally. Try to stand. Are you
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is that the Wolverine?
If I ever need an ego boost, I just swing on over to the outdoor store.
Oh yeah, you start looking around, man. You're like, oh no, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
That's why I like podcasts. I could be in my kitchen, you can be in your sister's house.
Yeah.
We could just be hanging out.
That's a good. It's not too, like I said, it's not too much fame. It's just enough that sometimes it's fun chatting with people. But I remember when I was with Joe Rogan, I was just like, man, that sucks to be that famous. Like that poor guy has to like, golly, he can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
I've been with that dude.
to it.
Yeah, I've been with that dude a few times where I picked him up one time at the Austin airport to go hunting. He was flying down to Austin before he lived there, and when I lived there and he didn't. I picked him up at the airport, and he was putting his stuff in the back of my truck, and people were just running up to my truck, going like, and just yelling things at him.
Yeah, that's.
And
weird.
I thought, why to say like, hey, love your show or love the UFC or love your comedy would be cool to do, but just running up to him and yelling some slogan and then running away, that seems.
But I gotta imagine it's got to be 24/7 when he's outside, basically, like unending.
Yeah, it's unending. That's
tough.
the life, man. It's got to be tough. I don't envy that, man.
Yeah, for me, it's still enjoyable. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's good.
So what's the future like? Where can people? I know, like you said, you're writing a book and some other things.
Yeah, I want to do some of more of those survival courses, and then I was thinking about trying to do some online stuff because that's just where people are at these days, and so it could be cool. And actually, it sounds fun because I feel like it'd be fun to like do the coolest, like the most practical and cool online stuff I could put out, like real stuff. What do you actually need to know, and then do it well, and that'd be fun knowledge to relay. So I'm just now thinking about how to do that and what I would want to.
Oh, that's cool, man. We just finished, our company just finished a book on just practical survival and stuff for hunters and outdoorsmen. So there's a lot in there.
There is.
And there's so many different levels. So maybe you find yourself on the meateater.com writing or doing some videos or something.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
that'd be cool as hell. Yeah.
Do it.
Well, let's do it, man. Well, I appreciate the time.
Follow me at that Hobo Jordo is on my Instagram.
Yeah, go there.
I'll keep people linked up to whatever I'm doing.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate the time and the show and letting me binge watch in my underwear at midnight watching you shoot a moose. So good times for you.
I'd like to know what things you were like, man, look at that moron. He's doing that.
There's a couple other people on the show.
There's always a couple. Yeah.
I thought they have to have a couple of crazy people who were never going to make it anyway. I won't make fun of them in the public forum here, but there's a few people on there that you're just like, you just knew that they're playing the role they were meant to play. They were never gonna make it, but they're crazy and they
tried. That's more than most people would be willing to do. Good for everybody. Yeah.
And then you get to the thing where you're just saying, well, that guy only made it a couple of days. My wife said that. Well, that guy only made it a couple of days, and I said, how many days would you make it? Like, well, let's not judge these people. They're doing their best.
Trying.
A guy fell down and broke his leg. I think he probably needs to get out of there.
Easy, yeah.
He needs to get out. So he's trying not to judge.
Yeah, it's fun, dude. Well, it's been fun chatting. And
man, it's been fun. It's fun getting to know what you're all about. I'd love to take a trip with you over to Siberia, man. That sounds like the most interesting thing in the world.
Yeah, someday maybe I'll organize something where people can come because it would be super cool. But
that'd be cool. If you write
documents sound very scary in that situation.
If I can make an ask, is your book about that time? Like, are you in the book?
Yeah,
you cover
that'll be a lot of it. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man! I can't wait to read that because I'm endlessly interested in those kind of experiences. So
yeah, tying in like resilience with Siberian natives and what we can learn from nomadic life. Anyway, that whole thing would be interesting.
Just a guy riding a reindeer. Just a guy riding a reindeer on the cover.
Totally.
All right, Jordan, man. I appreciate it. Man. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, talk soon.
All right, man. See you.
Later.
That's it, and that is all for this episode of the Hunting Collective. Thank you to Jordan Jonas, and thank you to all of you for writing in, being a part of this. Hopefully hopefully you got a nice little distraction from Jordan as you guys are all casting your votes and out there doing your American duty to elect the next president, the next senator, the next everything. Elect our officials in this country. Won't talk much more about that. I'm just going to leave you with that I'm a little bit melancholy, a little bit sad about this election. Me and Phil were just kind of going back and forth about why we would vote the way we did. It leaves me the conflict in my own mind about who I voted for and why I voted for them. Man, it is making me sad because I don't identify with either party. I can't find. I'm finding reasons not to vote for each candidate rather than reasons to vote for those candidates. And this is. It feels like I feel like a man on an island, and I feel like when you are that way, when you don't really identify with either of these two candidates or parties, then you're kind of out in the open for hate from both sides, and it's a tough place to be. So I'm going to go back and after all of this and reassess my own values. I just wish the best for our country, and I wish the best for all of you, especially you, Phil. I'm looking forward to going hunting with you. Even though we voted for different candidates, maybe we can heal by going hunting together.
Ben, let's meet up after this election and we'll crack open a watermelon White Claw and maybe make a salty Gilbert. Have you tried a salty Gilbert with a watermelon White Claw?
I have not, but I would love to. It might make me just a little bit happy because I'm feeling pretty salty right now. I'm feeling alone, which is good because we just interviewed a guy that lived in the woods for 77 days. So if to any of you out there that feel alone, that feel like you don't align completely with one of these ideologies and politics and all the polarity, if you're feeling alone, there's just nowhere to turn in your life. You know who's there for you? Me and Phil the engineer. We're there for you.
Yeah, well, that depends. If you're gonna talk about poop stories, I don't want it. Don't come to me.
Phil's there for you unless you're talking about poop stories.
Yes,
and,
sure. Also, I mean, if you're gonna look down on me for playing video games, I don't want to hang out with you either.
Also that.
One more thing. Also, you have to like Star Wars. You have to like everything that I like and agree with everything that I agree with.
Perfect. So, well, you're welcome here as long as you agree with Phil. And,
that's right.
Luckily, you should be naming your dogs after various fruits. Oh. And, this is what you should be doing. As long as you do all those things, you're welcome and accepted here at the Hunting Collective. So we'll keep soldiering on. Episode 151 next week. A whole new world. We'll see you next week. Say bye, Phil.
Goodbye.
Too long, 'cause I can't go a week without doing wrong. Without doing wrong. Without doing wrong. Without doing wrong. Drinking in heaven.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night and we'll see you on stage.